It genuinely is. Making movies is something that I am most passionate about. I love the film industry. I love making films. I love watching films. It's my world. Now what happens is, when I got the opportunity to become an actor, and I say I got the opportunity because another thing people don't believe is...
Right, I was going to ask you that question at some point.
It wasn't easy comings for me in that sense. You know, everybody would have thought being Mr. Bachchan's son, there was a line of producers.
No, so did you make that shit up, that you actually went for 2 years from one producer director's office to the other? Because everyone in Bombay should have a struggle story. You are Amitabh Bachchan's son, and it takes you 2 years to make a debut. I refuse to believe it.
There's my life story for you. They refuse to believe my truth as well, yeah. No, the only difference is I did not entirely go to all the producers' office. Sometimes they came to my father's. It was a bit of both. I was at that point working for my father's company as a production boy and as an assistant director. And that's when I was trying to get a job as an actor. And shockingly, which should have been a reality check for me, which I obviously didn't let it impact me as much as it should have, was most of them, and all the ones that said no to me, said it saying, no, we don't want the responsibility of launching Amitabh Bachchan's son, because they realized what that would take. And then suddenly, you know, one day, as a blessing, in walked Mr. J.P. Datta, and he had just made Border, and he offered me a film, and I jumped at the opportunity, because obviously it's J.P. Datta, why would you not want to work with him? But what happened after that is, it's just, you're like a kid in a candy store. I was just happy as an actor to have a job, to go out there and make movies. And guess what? I was enjoying it. Maybe some of the results I wasn't enjoying, but by and large, the process was wonderful. So I never really laid down and say, hey, what do I want out of my career? What do I want to achieve? How do I want to go about achieving it? I was just happy being an actor, getting a job and getting to make movies.
And getting your next film and your next.
Absolutely. Right. So I needed to rethink that. So these are the kind of things that I did.
So you constantly say this, Abhishek, that this version of you that we see is version 2.0. Is it version 4.0? Is it a thing that you start thinking about, even from mortality point of view, legacy point of view, when you're like 40 plus? I'm like, boss, can't continue like this forever. Could age have a factor, be a factor in this?
I'm sure it could. It wasn't for me.
Okay.
Who's 40, me?
No, you're 25.
No, I'm 42. But it's how old you feel, you know. Age really wasn't a thing. But I think maybe time spent being a professional is.
Sure.
You know, after a point you start evaluating your life and you say, hey, you know, what do I stand for? What am I going to be remembered as? And these are important questions. I think for me it was more after the birth of my daughter that I started asking myself these questions.
That you want to leave behind a legacy.
Absolutely.
Enough of Houseful 3s. And 4s and 5s.
No, I love that. I can't wait to do.
But nobody's going to remember those films. I mean, I'm sure they will.
You just did.
Huh?
You just did.
Well, I didn't have a choice. I was just reading up on what's the last film that he did before Man Marziya, which I think people will remember.
Well, thank you. That's the intention.
Right.
It's like I said, it's not. It wasn't the kind of films I was doing. If you ask me today, you might not agree with it because I know your personal choice, but I'd do another Houseful. I'd love to do another Happy New Year. I'd readily do a Bol Bachchan. I grew up watching Manmohan Desai and Prakash Mehra. They're my favorite filmmakers. I'd love to do the kind of stuff. And these are films that, you know, the audiences love. I agree, they're made for a specific kind of an audience. It's a genre of cinema which is leave your brains at home and just come entertain yourself. And there's a huge market for it, because if there wasn't, they wouldn't be doing the kind of business that they do. I mean, till date, I walk into places and people come up and say, you know, hey, Nandu Bide, or, you know, we loved you in Houseful. Or they'll come up to you and say, oh, we loved you in Dhoom and Jai Dikshit. So you can't discount that. So I love that kind of cinema. I can't wait to do it again. Coupled with other work that inspires me as well. But like I said, for me, it was more about how I was doing that kind of film. It wasn't like, okay, if you're going to stand there, then you need to make a difference. You need to be able to say something. You need to be able to do something. You need people to turn around and hopefully, you know, come back here and sit in front of you and get you to give as glowing a response to a Houseful that you have, say, for Man Marziya. Thank you, by the way. Yeah.
You're welcome.
So that's part of the goal. You can't just write off stuff and say, oh, Mayank didn't like it, so that's fine.
No, of course.
No, I want you to like it, so I'm going to work hard enough so that...
Did it happen in the early part of your career, especially, Abhishek, when you did certain films and you thought you'd done a great job in those films, and perhaps people hadn't watched it and you felt even worse about it. I'll give an example, okay? And of course you'll come up with far more examples. Like one of my favorite performances of yours is a film called Run, right? And there's this scene where you're in a subway. And so just to let the audience know, there are a bunch of goons and the hero is right there facing the bunch of goons, and he turns around and he starts running. So you think, "Arey, ek to naya type ka hero hai, he's running." But he's actually running to catch the shutter, to pull it down so no one else runs away, and then he whacks the shit out of everyone. I don't know how many people saw it, but that was a fantastic performance.
That was the reason I did the film.
Right. Oh, was that the scene?
Yeah. So, Run was a Tamil film which Maddie had acted in. And Maddie, Madhavan is a dear friend of mine. And I had agreed to do it because it's a very cool story. Mr. Boni Kapoor wanted to produce the film, and he said, "Look, come watch this film." I said, "Okay." So I went to see it in a trial room that we have called Ketnav, which is in Bandra. And I went and sat there. I remember Sridevi ji, the late Sridevi ji, was sitting next to me. I'm a huge fan of hers, okay? I used to go hang out on the sets of Khudagawa just to watch her. And she was sitting next to me, and she's always been so lovely to me, and she had always encouraged me, and she had loved this film I'd done called Tera Jadoo Chal Gaya. I think she was the only person who
No, that's not true. That's not true.
But yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Were you born? So I was sitting next to her, and I'm sitting next to Sridevi. I was like, wow. And suddenly, I wasn't even paying attention to the film. But suddenly, when that scene came, for me, that was my ode to my father, actually. Because that scene reminded me of a scene in Diwar.
Right.
And I said, I'm doing this film. And then when I reached the set, I remember that, oh God, I've only remember one scene. I don't even remember what the film was about. But that was the reason I did that film. And that film actually got a great response. That's still one of the films that, on Twitter till date, people still say that they liked it. So a few people saw it. But every film has its own destiny, I believe. So yeah.
Are there any others you can remember which, I mean the early part of your career where you felt like you'd given your best, but I don't think the audience came and they should have?
No.
None?
The one truth which us actors very seldom own up to is when you see your film, which you do before the audience does, you know whether it's going to work or not.
Really?
Yeah. You know whether you've given your best, because you know the amount of effort you've put in whilst filming it. So you realize that. It's after that, hope is a very dangerous thing. You just hope it clicks. But you know the truth. Very honestly, I've done some 60 odd films now. Right. I've been wrong just about one of them.